Hey Joy family, happy Thursday. It is great to be able to come to you again today. And just a couple quick updates. First of all, tonight we have our Ladies Through the Bible in a Year study over at Rosellen's. You'll see the information on our Facebook page or on our website, and you can give Rosellen a call, get directions to her house. She lives right down the street here from our church. And I want to encourage you also to be praying for each other. Even though we have some things opening up and some things maybe loosening a little bit, we are still kind of isolated, and so be calling each other, praying for each other, lifting each other up. Also, reaching out to your neighbors. Great way that we can share the love of Jesus with others during this time. Also, this coming Sunday, we have our time of worship together. We're going to be continuing our journey through Romans. We're in Romans chapter 13 this week. So you'll definitely want to join us. You can join us in person on Sunday or via our live stream, whichever you're comfortable with or whichever you're able. And if you are going to join us in person on Sunday, we ask that you go to our website or our Facebook page, take a look at the guidelines for health and safety so that we can all kind of be helping each other and respecting each other through this as well. So be taking a look at that. But this Sunday, we're also going to be honoring our graduates, those that have graduated high school, college, and grad school. So it's going to be a pretty exciting Sunday for us here this last Sunday of June. Now, back to our miracles of Jesus. On Tuesday, we looked at my favorite miracle of Jesus, and this is another one of my favorites we're going to be looking at this morning. It's a little later on in Jesus' ministry, but still early, and it's found in Mark chapter 4, and we're going to read this miracle and then see what it means for us and how Jesus reveals himself to us so that we can trust him and love him all the more. So in Mark chapter 4, starting in verse 35, it says this. On that day, and this is when Jesus was continuing to minister, he was doing some parables, he was explaining some things, teaching the crowds, and later on in that day, when evening had come, he said to them, his disciples, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake, Sea of Galilee." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we're perishing?" And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with fear or awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" Now, as a fisherman, as one who's had experience out on the water, I can relate to this situation. I've been out many times where everything's slick, calm, and everything's going great, and then all of a sudden the wind just comes up, and the waves build, and they're crashing over my boat or over my kayak, and it's frightening. It's frightening to see how the weather can change so quickly, and things can go from just an enjoyable day to life and death struggle. And this is what the disciples are facing here. And I don't know if you've ever faced that. Maybe not in the sea, but maybe in your life, and you're facing trials and sickness that may come to you, or financial troubles that may come, or things crashing down on you, and you're just feeling overwhelmed, kind of like these disciples are feeling overwhelmed, and feeling like we're not going to make it. And here's what's happening. So they're in this boat. Remember, these disciples, most of them are fishermen, or a lot of them are fishermen. They're experienced with this. Yet even they realize this is a life and death struggle that they're in. And it says Jesus is in the back of the boat, and he's sleeping all throughout this chaos. Now, he's got to be getting wet here. I mean, this is an open boat that they're in, that they would fish in and things like that. So waves have to be crashing to him, yet he's still sleeping. And they wake him up and they say, "Don't you care?" And of course, Jesus stands up and said, he stills the storm immediately. And it says, "Don't you have faith?" And then they stand in awe and they say, "Wow. This Jesus, he's even more than a great teacher and a healer. Nature even obeys him." And they're starting to get the clue that this Jesus is somebody much greater than just a teacher or a healer, that he might in fact be God in the flesh, the Messiah. And this is a great miracle for us to kind of grasp. And basically how Jesus is revealing himself through this miracle is this. He is our peace. And this is how Jesus is revealing himself as our peace. And it's interesting because back in Isaiah the prophet had given prophecies about Jesus. In Isaiah 9, he talks about these names. This is who this God in the flesh, this Jesus, is going to be named. Remember, Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. And here we see that prophecy fulfilled as Jesus is this peace, bringing calm to the storm and bringing safety to his followers. Now, this isn't always easy, though. Maybe you're going through a storm, or you've gone through storms, and you will go through storms. And storms often have a way of not strengthening our faith necessarily, but more revealing our faith, revealing where our trust lies. And when we're shaken, we realize, man, maybe I'm not trusting in God like I should be. And in this miracle, in this story, we see it revealing things in the disciples. Even though they had walked with Jesus, they had seen that Jesus can do miracles, that he's a great teacher, yet they still got overwhelmed in this. And storms in life, they can test our faith that God is our peace, that he is the one who can still everything and who can get us through anything. As a matter of fact, sometimes, despite what we have trouble trusting this. And we see here 3 ways that we might have trouble trusting in this miracle. The first is we might have trouble trusting that God is our peace when we're looking at the severity of the storm. When we're looking at the storm around us and we're saying, man, this is big. Whatever I'm going through, wow. And when our eyes are on that storm and how big it is. Because a lot of times when we're going through something, it's big for us. A health scare or financial trouble or types of things like this, relationship problems, our kids or whatever. And we can say, man, this storm is too big. What I'm going through is so huge. I don't know how anybody could get through it. And I don't know how I'm going to get through it. And sometimes we look at that, and this is what the disciples saw. They saw this severity of the storm, and their eyes are only on that, saying, this storm is going to overwhelm us. And another way that we can doubt that God is in control or God is our peace is the silence of God. A lot of times we're in this storm and God isn't fixing it right away. God isn't coming in like the cavalry, riding on the hill saying, hey, I'm here, I'm going to rescue you right away. Sometimes we're going in that, and the longer we're in that storm, we're saying, well, maybe God doesn't care. Here we see Jesus. He's in the back of the boat while all this is going on, and they're frantically trying to save this boat. He's sleeping, and they're saying, doesn't he care? Right? They wake him up. Can't believe this, Jesus. I mean, we could have really used your help here. And sometimes we do that with God, don't we? And we could start to doubt him and say, you know what, God, man, I could really use you right now. And why aren't you coming in and rescuing me right now? And sometimes we kind of get this. But we need to remember, nothing takes God off guard. Nothing is too overwhelming for God. Just as nothing was too overwhelming for Jesus here, God in the flesh. And nothing was too overwhelming. Nothing took him off guard. And nothing said he didn't care. Never take the silence of God or what we see. If we don't see God working, never take that as a sign that God doesn't care. Instead, take it as a sign that God is in complete control. He's got this. As a matter of fact, he's at perfect peace. So when we're going through something, we can trust him knowing that if God hasn't rescued us from this yet, he's got us in this. And he's going to take care of us within this. And then he will work. We will see him work. And then finally, we can have a doubt. We can also doubt that God can do anything. Sometimes we see the storm is so big and we could say, yeah, I know God can do this, but man, this is so huge. The disciples had seen miracles. They had seen great teaching, but they had never seen Jesus controlling nature itself. So they didn't know Jesus could do this. And that's why they stood in awe after Jesus just spoke. and everything was calm. And they're in awe. They're like, wow, even the sea and the winds obey him. And they started to get a clue. This Jesus, he's bigger than what we think. As a matter of fact, he can do anything. So maybe you're in the storms of life this morning. Maybe you're facing things that seem so overwhelming. I want to encourage you this morning to trust God right in the midst of them. You know, the storm that you may be going through, the trial you may be going through might be huge, but it's not bigger than God. So don't get overwhelmed at the severity of the storm, because we have a God who is better still. And don't get overwhelmed that we don't see God working right away, or we don't see God rescuing us. God is working in the midst of the storm. It might not be the way we might see him work, and the way we might want him to work. He might be having us in the storm so others can see us in the storm, so that we can minister to others while we're there. But don't ever think that God doesn't care, because God cares for us and loves us more than we can possibly imagine. And then finally, when we're in the storms, just stand firm in the truth that God can do anything. Just as he can still the storms, just as he can make the wind cease just at his word, you know what? He can bring peace and calm in our lives as well. So this miracle of calming the storm is such a great promise and an encouragement for us, no matter what we're facing, that Jesus, God in the flesh, has got us. He cares for us. He's bigger than anything we can possibly face, so that we, just as he slept in the back of the boat, we can rest in him. So have a great weekend, Joy family, and just walk in the love and the care and the peace of Jesus.